Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Divorced Woman's Guide podcast. How are you today? I am so happy that you guys have tuned in because I am here with Jessica Gershman, aka the Zen Mommy. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
I'm good, Wendy. So good to be here again together.
Yes, yes, me too. For those of you who are tuning in, Jessica and I tried to record this one time before, and there was a power outage where Jessica lives and we had to start over. So this is take two. And I'm excited to chat with her today about her mindfulness tips and tricks and how each and every one of you guys can start being more present in your life. So Jessica, before we dive into our conversation, I'm going to share a little bit more with our audience about you. So Jessica is the founder of the Zen Mommy and the voice behind the Mom Slow Down podcast, as well as a passionate believer in the power of self-care. Through her work as a certified yoga instructor, an accomplished home chef, and a dedicated mindfulness practitioner, she has created a holistic program that supports women, especially moms, in giving them the tools to create a satisfying life. Jessica has experience juggling the demands of a career as a successful commercial real estate developer with the life-changing role of mom. And through her work of Zen Mommy, she shares her personal story of overcoming disordered eating, redefining her sense of self as a new mother, and finding ways to feed herself first as a foundation for a more joyful and less stressful life. Jessica's mission is to reframe the idea of what a good mom looks like and give moms permission to show up just as they are. And Jessica, I love the mission that you are creating in this world. It is so incredibly important because I think that we all believe that we have to, live up to certain expectations. We tend to compare ourselves to other people, et cetera. So I love the work that you do. And so much of your own personal experience has led you to do the work that you do today. So would you mind sharing a little bit more with our audience today about your journey and how you have come to do the work that you do today?
Yeah, thank you, Wendy, so very much for that beautiful introduction. I think moms can all out there agree that we walk around feeling less than a lot of the time, whether it's guilt or shame or the just unworthiness feeling that regardless of what it looks like on the outside or what it looks like in social media, we're all really suffering with. And I was, not abstained from that feeling, life is a journey. I call myself a recovering perfectionist because you're always kind of in recovery.
Yes.
Like you're never done with the journey, the minute you start to get better or, evolve, and then the life just smashes you down. You're like, damn it, I'm still working. It's never ending. But I met my husband when I was 22 and he was going through a divorce, and I was very fresh-faced and started my career really young and a perfectionist. And, I took on 2 little boys and my stepsons at 22, 23 years old. So I was not equipped with the skill set to come in and have this family and a career and a new husband. We got married and 2 little boys and ultimately my own children, because I was still a child and growing. And I think if we all look back to our 20s, I wouldn't go back. I would have my 20-year-old butt again and less saggy skin, but I would not go back and be, 25-year-old Jess, because she was a hot mess and just was really struggling. And I lived through my husband's divorce, which was a different perspective than coming up as a divorced child. I really got to see firsthand what the impact was on the boys and living in 2 households and, as an adult person and kind of getting through that. But I was headed to divorce with my husband at the time. I mean, we were really struggling. I was struggling, and my daughter was born in 2009. I was 28 years old and I needed a better way. I knew I was unhappy. I knew enough to know that happiness started with me. It wasn't something that my husband could give me, or if a different life situation, or if maybe the ex-wife would just, participate in some way. Like none of that was really going to change my situation and my happiness. And now I had a young woman. I mean, she was an infant, but that was playing in the big times. I think anybody listening as a mom, having children gives us strength we didn't know that we had. And I had not been able to get over bulimia, disordered eating, body dysmorphia, all the things that I suffered with from my late teens and early 20s, and just really everything that went along with that very negative chatter, the self-real, all of the self-loathing. And I stumbled into a yoga class, and I guess I'd never really been, I would call it granola yoga. It wasn't my thing. But for whatever reason, they always say the teacher shows up when the student is ready. And for me, I was ready for something that was going to give me the platform and the path to start to find change. And that first yoga class was an experience lying in the pool of my own sweat. Of course, it was hot vinyasa because I'm still recovering perfectionist. And if it wasn't hard, it wasn't, doing anything.
It wasn't yoga.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. I didn't go into a really nice restorative class and have this life-changing experience. No, it was hard as hell and, sweaty and loud, and they were playing rap music, but I found a little piece of myself. I got a little piece of the knowing. And I remember lying at that first class and being like, you're not so bad. This isn't so bad. This life thing isn't so bad. Like, you can handle this. And it was like the first time in my adult life where I felt life was manageable. And that was profound. So that started off on a path of many, many trainings. I've trained all over the country from New York to San Francisco, and opened my own studio in my home, and was able and had the privilege to teach women therapeutically. And that was a really amazing experience because I really got firsthand knowledge of we're all in this together, and there's this collective universal thread of motherhood that unites us in our suffering, for lack of a better word. I mean, it is, unites us in the experience. And I would be very open and vulnerable in my studio and talk about, what I was going through, in my marriage, or what I was going through interpersonally as I was growing and shifting and changing. And it never failed. Someone at the end of class was like, that really spoke to me, or I experienced that, or I had this loss, or, and it was like, wow, we're not coming up with new problems, in today's day and age. And everything that we've experienced has already been experienced and will be experienced in the future. And so as much as it can be very isolating, we're really in it together. And I think yoga was that journey, that platform that really showed that interconnectedness and united me with other women.
Yeah. And I have to be honest with you. I thought yoga looked one way until I took my first yoga class. And I think that a lot of people who are listening maybe even think that yoga has to look one way, or they have to be a certain type of person for yoga to work for them. So what would you say to people who have these types of, myths in their mind? And I know I was one of them until I tried yoga. And I even remember the first time it was like, oh, this is what this could be. So what would you say to somebody who has that mindset?
Yeah, well, I love the fact that yoga and meditation are practices. Right. So there's not a mastery or an end game or a winning of yoga. I mean, I think at some point there was
one way, right?
Oh, right. Right. And I think to remind everyone, like medicine, it's a practice, it's trial and error. So with meditation, with yoga, there's no good or bad at it, but allowing the space for you to have your own human experience, your own personal experience. And it's something I say, to stay on your own mat, to really, it's an internal awareness practice. And we really invite, as teachers, you to go inside and be like, what's going on in there? How am I feeling today? Am I stressed? Am I tight? Am I tense? Am I clenching my jaw? We start with subtle things like, where's my breath? Am I short and choppy and shallow and, fight or flight breath? Or am I holding tension in my body? And then we start to understand where's my energy? What are my emotions doing? What is this crazy thinking mind doing when the teacher asks me to do XYZ pose that I don't like? And we get to start to look at ourselves. I almost say we're kind of having this like ethereal experience of like you're outside of yourself looking in and being like, oh, you look at how angry you're getting because she told you down dog was a resting pose, or look at, and you get to start to laugh and explore. And it really is a safe space to grow, evolve, test on. Like I got to test on kind of new personalities, new thoughts, new pathways. I mean, scientifically, through meditation, breath work, mindfulness, and yoga, your brain does change. Like the shape of your brain starts to change. It molds. You can create new patterns, new pathways, new processes so that you start to see the world in a different way. The colors are brighter. You're more present in life. You're experiencing joy and connection with people that you didn't think was possible, all because you're starting to connect into your own body and you're starting to live in the here and now.
Yeah. And I want to talk more about that because especially those of us who have been through divorce or going through divorce, like we live so much in our heads, right? We have so many different voices that are constantly talking to us. And I know that there have been times where I have been doing yoga or I have been doing meditation where I do notice my mind wandering, or I will like start thinking about all the things that I have to do today. And it wasn't really until a friend of mine taught me the art of mindfulness. And I would love for you to share with our audience today some more information about what to do when your mind does go, kind of down the rabbit hole of listening to other voices, your ego, whatever it is, and how it is that they can become more present even with that chatter.
Yeah. So I think it's first to recognize our mind's job is to think all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's its only job. And so, it's our choice if we want to attach onto those thoughts or stories or to-do lists. But, we start to separate ourselves as the thoughts being a part of us, because we get to consider like, well, who is thinking those thoughts? Right? Those thoughts are happening, but you're also back here kind of looking at them and being like, oh, I don't know if I really believe that, or I don't know if I think that or believe that about this person, or that didn't really happen that way. But your mind's job is to think all the time. And so it's totally normal, natural. Everyone does it. Even the most avid meditator gets lost in thought, period. I mean, that's just the way of having a human experience. Right. What mindfulness is really about living in the here and now. And so this idea that life only exists in the present moment. It doesn't exist in our head when we're worrying about something that's happened a year ago, even 5 minutes ago. It's never coming back. Like that is in the past. There's nothing thinking about it will do to ever make that come back, to relive that experience, to have that again. Or worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, even in 5 minutes. It could be later on this evening. We're constantly worrying about all of these and create like these very dramatic and incredible stories about stuff that hasn't happened yet, that may not happen. I mean, because if we all know life is uncontrollable, right? And things that we could never anticipate will happen. We come into experiences, we have loss, we have grief, we have suffering, we have collective human experiences like we all experienced with the pandemic, where our little comfy life was ripped right out from under our feet. And we're like, okay, if you think you have some control in the external world, this is just the universe reminding you that you don't.
You don't. Exactly.
So mindfulness, yeah. And mindfulness is the tool to start to bridge our head and our heart, so that we can start to live more in the present moment and start to appreciate the things that are actually happening, that are really real. And when you realize in the present moment, I do this with my husband all the time. I have a story that I want to tell myself about him, about our past experiences, about some resentment that I'm carrying with me in my little bags. But the reality is, in the present moment, he's showing up, he loves me, he's right here. So yoga believes and would say that in the present moment, there's joy, you're safe, you're alive, you're breathing, everything is okay. suffering is what goes on in the mind.
Yeah. I had to write that down. I just wrote down mindfulness. I've never heard this before. Mindfulness is the bridge between your head and your heart. And that makes total sense because, I think so many times we don't acknowledge the thoughts that come in, and what we do instead is we go direct. It's like we get in like the carpool lane, right? That's moving faster into the land of judgment. And then we continue down, the story rabbit hole instead of just paying attention, acknowledging the thought, asking yourself, is this even true? Am I present? Right. And so many times I feel like because we live in such a fast-paced world, we don't allow ourselves enough time or even allow ourselves the opportunity to acknowledge or think about a thought. I think I had read we have something like 60,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot.
And some of them are crazy. Like if you don't want to know what goes on in my head, it's kind of funny. Like I would think you would say the same thing that goes on in your head. We can take a deep dive into Shametown, and be the mayor of Guiltville and not even realize it.
Right. 100. Well, and I think a lot of us going through divorce, we live in the land of bitterness, resentment, guilt, sadness. And we don't allow ourselves to enter into the world of joy and happiness and peace and love because we're just so focused on, like you said, we're focused on the past predominantly, right? And as you said, like the only time that exists is right now. Like you're missing out. Life is passing you by. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that, mindfulness and yoga and meditation is a big part of how you do get more present to what is here in the now. And I also say that it is an amazing first step for anyone, especially us moms, to make ourselves a priority. Like we listen to our friends. Why don't we listen to ourselves? Right? We give our friends all the courtesy and compassion in the world, but then when it comes to us, we're the last person that we think about. So how can our listeners today take a step towards making themselves a priority and their thoughts a priority?
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said, we hold on to this story about our experience because somehow holding on to this resentment or story is going to give us validation in our suffering or validating to feel some sort of way or being stuck, right. Or not happy, it's because he did or she did or right. they did, and so the most simple tool, and it's free and accessible to all, is breathing. And it is so rudimentary and silly, but yoga says, breathing is one thing that we can't do in the past. We can't breathe for yesterday and we can't breathe for tomorrow. We can't do it in the future. And so just the practice of starting to notice the breath. And this is like, I'm just starting out. I realize I'm stressed. You notice with the breath, eyes closed, eyes open, right? You notice you keep coming back to the breath as it's like an anchor, right? And so you notice, oh shit, my mind just went over here and I was lost for the last, 30 seconds before but you're not failing at meditation, right? You're not failing at mindfulness. It's just like, bring it back. Would you yell at your toddler who's learning to walk, and they fall down and you'd scream at them to get back up or they didn't do it right? No, we just bring it on back, bring it back, come back to the breath. And it is that simple. I've been using, in my meditation, just the simple phrase of on my inhale, breathe in, on my exhale, breathe out. And that is enough to acknowledge the connection between my mind and my heart, my head and my heart, and to bring me back into the present moment, because I'm just acknowledging the only thing that is really happening is right here in that breath. That's all that exists. And in that moment, I'm safe, I'm happy, I'm alive, I'm stress-free, I'm joyful. Anything else beyond that, right? We don't know what's going to happen. But I think what's cool and what yoga did for me and what meditation, mindfulness, even coaching is that we get to start to see what goes on in our head. What does that inner critic look like, sound like, feel like, I named mine, her name, and she's a real bitch. She's got this really nasally voice and she's super hypercritical of me. And so, everyone's a little different, but we get to start to unravel some of these things that we've carried with us as a part of us and lose that really hard connection to that. Like, I don't have to connect to my inner critic, Jordan. I don't even like her. She's not very nice to me, So when Jordan speaks up, I can at least be like, oh, okay, that's you, Jordan. No, I'm going to get back doing what I'm in. I'm taking a moment to breathe. Some mindfulness tips that I absolutely love. We have 5 senses: sight, smell, taste, hearing, touch. Use those to reconnect. Take a moment, 30 seconds, each sense, they're 5, just a few minutes. Check in with those senses. What do I taste in my mouth? What do I smell in the room? Anything can be your anchor to bring it back in the present moment, and do it, every few minutes if you have to, and it's a practice. And the more we condition the mind, the more we strengthen it. Just like if you're working out in the gym, the easier it is to start to access that present moment, that concentration more often.
Yeah. And I love that. I have done that before where, I will take a second and tap into all of my senses, right? Like, what am I smelling? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I tasting? What am I touching? To just ground you back into this moment. And I think what a lot of us choose to do instead is to just allow our minds to take over. Anxiety goes up, right? And angst and all the different negative emotions that now are surfacing, then I believe also dovetail into poor habits that become developed. And, and listen, I know people who go one direction. I went a totally other direction, right? Like, I started depriving myself nutritionally because I had no appetite. I had no this, like, mindfulness, what, yoga, what, like,
it's hard.
It is hard. And so, what people start doing instead is they start creating poor nutrition habits, right? On a very wide spectrum. And what I don't think people understand that I would love for you to talk about, because, I love also that the part of you, like, you're an incredible chef and cooking is a very big part of your life and also to your practice. So how can you talk a little bit to our audience today to help them to understand how nutrition does impact their mindset? Because it's all related. And I don't think people necessarily understand that tie.
I think there's the emotional piece, whether it's self-medicating or depriving. Again, that piece, the emotional piece, those choices keep us in that place of suffering, right? And that some kind of negative validation that, it was all worth it in the end, and really you suck and you're not lovable and your life is shit, right? So we make these unconscious, a lot of times, choices to treat our physical body negatively, whether it's poor nutrition or eating processed foods or overeating or undereating or alcohol or drugs or whatever that is, to numb out. The reality is, like a car, like anything, what you put into your body will give you what you're going to have out of it. I mean, easier said than done, right? It is hard. My best friend is going through a divorce and it's been the roughest year, and, she's not even out of the woods yet. And it's, as much as I'm like, and she's a trained therapist, and I'm like, come on, just meditate with me, just journal, and I get how incredibly painful and hard it is to just get up half the time, and then to start thinking about, okay, now I'm going to nourish my body with whole foods. But we as moms are very black and white. So if it doesn't look like I ate kale and I had a green smoothie and I had grilled chicken for lunch and I spent an hour in the gym, then it's just not freaking worth it. And I think giving ourselves some space to have gray area, the first thing I would say is prioritize your sleep, because you're not going to make any good choices if you're running on zero sleep, alcohol induced wake ups at, 2:00 in the morning, which we've all had with racing hearts, and, you feel terrible the next day. Everything feeds on itself, and all of that contributes to your mindset. And as challenging as it may be, it's like, pick one thing, and it doesn't have to be black and white. Have a green smoothie at some point in your day to know that you're getting those vegetables. I mean, what we put in our body is going to be what's available to give out to others, to our jobs, to ourselves, to our friends, to our life. And it starts with the fuel. I mean, the same thing is like, you're not going to have like a sports car and go put sludge in it or just pour vegetable oil in it and expect it to run. I mean, it's never, you know, we know these things. They're not rocket science. They've been around, you know, as we've started to learn more about nutrition and, you know, how the body works and how it functions. And I think it's getting rid of these very tight, confining, stringent expectations that it has to look or feel a certain way, and give yourself the grace to have a human experience. And my mom used to always say, you do your best with what, you know, resources you have today. So every day, if you wake up and getting out of bed is enough for you, okay, great. That's it. Tomorrow, I'm going to throw in a green smoothie. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Give yourself some grace, make baby steps, make a commitment to creating a better life for yourself, to recover from divorce, death, grief, suffering in some way. It starts with little baby steps, and it doesn't have to be all at once.
Yeah. And I love that, because I think that we all have an expectation of how we think it has to look. So we just say, never mind. Right. There's days where it's like, or, you know, I don't think people understand even the benefit of like, it doesn't have to be a 30-minute workout. It doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 5 minutes. It can be 10 minutes. Go walk your dog around the block, right? Like,
get some fresh air. Being in nature is so healing. Getting outside and breathing fresh air. Yeah. 5 minutes. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. And I, you know, and even during my work day, right, a lot of people don't do this, but like I build in time between calls because I have to get outside. I have to get some vitamin. I mean, I live in Los Angeles, so yes, there's more sunshine than across the country, but like, it's not just the sun and the vitamin D. It's the fresh air. Sometimes I need to like put my feet in the grass and like really root myself and just connect. And just getting up and moving, right, is half the battle. It doesn't have to look the same way every day. And I love what you also said about what your mom said, which is that, and what I heard you say is that our best gets to look different every day. And we get to stop being in judgment when one day doesn't look the way another day did, that you just, okay, this was my best today and tomorrow's a new day. And having a positive outlook is so incredibly important to everybody's life. And especially for us moms, because Lord knows, like it's like we are constantly, you know, juggling balls and have multiple balls in the air at all times.
And life is a continuum, right? Nobody gets out alive. There's no pass fail, you know, and it's the one life we have. Why not make it the best life possible? You know, and that is being in the present moment. The more we're present, the more we can connect, the more we can be attuned to our children's needs, the more we can be attuned to our own needs and really start living a life. And there is so much joy in life. And I think that's my platform of just giving moms the tools to be like, no, but you can have everything you want. You can have a happy life. You can feel good about yourself. You can give yourself a big old high five in the morning, you know, in the mirror, and you can do all of these incredible things. And it's not going to look the same. It's not going to look like, you know, my best is different and I fail all the time. And some days I kill it and I get my 60-minute workout in and I ate green vegetables all day and I killed that parenting thing and I got a great email. And some days I'm like, man, I feel really down and shitty and fat and, you know, I'm exhausted and all of the things. And both are okay, right? Both are having a human experience. And I think giving moms, especially, just this platform to be like, just keep showing up. Yeah. Just keep showing up for yourself. Yeah. Just keep showing up.
And giving yourself grace along the way, right? Like we're all human beings. I mean, listen, I had a couple of bad days last week. My ex-husband triggered me last week again. Okay.
I think last week was a tough week for everyone. I don't know what was going on, but it was.
Interesting. Okay, good.
Yeah. Now, everyone I talked to had a shitty week.
Yeah. I'm like, last week was not a good week.
Right.
It was kind of a
but
shitty
this week is different, right, Wendy?
Totally different.
It's
totally
temporary. Different. Even the really wonderful things are temporary, as much as we want to hold on to them. Yes. You know, our kids will eventually get up and move away. I mean, life, it's temporary, all of it, the good, the bad, the indifferent. And, you know,
it's neutral.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I always say like it's neutral and we choose to put polarity on it, right? Like in the hell that I was in last week, I was like, okay, there is a lesson in this. Like it's going to show up when it's time. Like this is, this is part of my journey. This is part of my path. Like this too shall pass. And, and I think it's so important to everybody who's listening is that, Jessica and I are here letting you guys know, like we have really great days and we have really shitty days too. And it's not all sunshine, roses, unicorns, and rainbows. There are moments where there's rainbows and unicorns and it's amazing. And there's days where, I feel like Linus from the Peanuts, where I've got the little gray cloud that just keeps following me. But I know eventually the rain will stop. And I know eventually, the unicorn can't stay with me forever either. But, it's called life, right? Ups and downs. It's just the way that it is. Jessica, I absolutely love what you do. I love what you stand for. I wrote down a bunch of different really great nuggets of what you said today. I always learn from every guest that I have here on the show. I'm so honored that you came and you stopped by to share some of your wisdom. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience before we sign out? And then I also know that you have a generous gift for everybody too.
Yeah. So honestly, it just keeps showing up. I mean, these little tools of mindfulness are really free to everyone. They're accessible. You don't need my app. You don't need permission. You don't need a teacher. You can just keep showing up for yourself and it will get better. And you're not alone in your suffering. And I think it's important that we all are more honest about the human experience that we're having, because the moment that you are honest about your experience or your suffering or what you're going through, you give permission for someone else to show up just as they are, imperfectly perfect. And that's what I'm here to do. So Wendy, I love what you're doing and you're giving hope to so many through such a challenging and tough time. And I just have a lot of respect for that.
Oh, thank you, hon. I appreciate that. And I'd love for you to share with everybody how they can find you. And then I know you also have a little special something to give everybody today too.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. I'm at _Zen_mommy. Mommy, yeah, thank you. The website is thezenmommy.com. The app is the Zen Mommy. The podcast is called Mom Slow Down. It's where all podcasts are. And so for everyone that's listening that downloads the app, the Zen Mommy, you're going to get a free month. It's a free download and then it gets to $9.99, but we're going to give a free month to anybody that downloads the app during the month that this airs. So.
Amazing. That's so generous. I can't wait to download it myself. I'm super excited. Jessica, thank you so much for being my guest, for tuning in to just the rest of us outside who need your support and for the work that you're doing. It really means a lot. And I'm honored to have had you here. I've been a huge fan and follower of yours. So I'm really honored to be here with you. So thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
Of course. And everybody, thank you so much for joining today's episode. You know that with every single one of these interviews and conversations, I am striving to help you guys to gain one nugget of information to help you wherever it is that you guys are in your healing and recovery process. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You are welcome to share your feedback. What was an aha moment? What was a learning that you guys got from this episode? Please share it with me. I love hearing your feedback. You can always email me at wendy@wendysterling.net. Hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day, wherever it is that you are. Sending you tons of love, light, and joy as always. Mwah. Bye, everybody.